Spectrovision Radio.
While our government's official position is not to speculate on this subject, we can choose to let our minds explore other possibilities, to use our imaginations. For if we consider that astroscientists agree on one point, that the possibility of life elsewhere is not only quite probable, some feel it is there without a doubt. Let us suppose then that these objects are real space vehicles, extraterrestrial in origin, and not an illusion of the mind.
This is Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague.
Welcome to a very special episode of Somewhere in the Skies, a voice you haven't heard in quite some time. So without further ado, the one, the only, Rob Kristoffersen.
Thanks, man. Holy God. It's so weird doing these again. It's like, you talk to people, you're talking about UFOs, and you're like, you swore you were never going to talk about them again. And then they somehow, shoot down that tractor beam into my brain cavity, and I am back here talking about them again.
We're here today to talk about New York UFOs. We have the go-tos in New York, Whitley Strieber. We've got the Linda Napolitano Brooklyn Bridge incident, which a lot of people know about. The Hudson Valley wave, obviously. But I remember you and I kind of sitting down and racking our brains being like, what else can we deliver to the world of UFOs here in New York State? And it's hard, man. It's hard to find anything that's worth really talking about and, that's not just some lights in the sky. And lo and behold, I knew you would do it. You brought 3 unique cases to the table. I've got a couple as well. So we're going to run through those tonight. But yeah, how was it digging up New York stories?
New York stories are tough. And there are these blog posts that have emerged in the last few years. And it always starts with something like such and such state accounts for so many UFO sightings, or this state has had so many more UFO sightings this year, and things like that. And reported cases and cases that are just talked about in New York are very little, very infrequent. A lot of the cases that I'm bringing to the table are all old. They're from the 50s and the 60s, but they were significant during their time, especially in the 50s when Donald Kehoe was kind of the guy really putting UFOs in the mainstream and trying to combat UFO secrecy. And you can see a lot of activists these days. You can see the Donald Kehoe in them, which I can appreciate to a certain extent. But man, New York just doesn't. There aren't enough cases that are known, and people need to know these cases.
Yeah, and why do you think that is? I mean, for me, I go to the whole idea of there's a ton of light pollution, at least here in New York City. So you don't hear a lot of cases out of New York City specifically, unless it's a misidentification at our airports. I mean, you throw up one of those apps where you can see every flight above you here, dude, and it's insane. It's like raining airplanes left and right. But and like you said, a lot of these cases seems to be from decades ago. The 2 I'm bringing forth are in the 60s and 80s as well. But is it that? Is it the fact that there's not a lot of researchers here on the East Coast even? A lot of the people are always out west or, down south or in the Midwest or Philadelphia. But you don't hear a lot of people coming out of New York.
No, you don't. And I think a lot of that is just... I think the area has to do with it. And New York is just one of the most light polluted states there is. I am fortunate and live in one of the, least light polluted areas. The Adirondack Park is one of the best places to, look up at the stars because they're really, you're pretty well isolated. You don't have a lot of big cities around here. And if you do, they're generally less than 100,000 people that live there. So I figure there should be more UFO sightings coming from the Adirondacks, but unfortunately, there aren't.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. But, you know, I definitely just think that the research is not being done. I don't think that the investigations are really happening here, which, you know, I can kind of understand. And to be completely honest, I don't think like some agencies are doing their best to do it, and that's because they're volunteer agencies. You know, they do what they can with their spare time, but the dedicated investigators, and we've talked about this before, they're not there anymore, and I think it largely has to do with the fact that those investigators kind of made a living reporting on these things and submitting these stories to UFO journals and other, you know, strange magazines and stuff of the time, but we don't really have that anymore. So
yeah, the days of you're right, all these like dime and nickel UFO magazines that came out with the weirdest stories. We don't have them anymore. I mean, God, this is awesome. This is something we could bring up. The Weekly World News is coming back.
Yes.
Isn't that awesome? They did a Kickstarter, and they reached their goal in, I think, like 24 hours. So we're going to get more Bat Boy. We're going to get more, you know, I'm pregnant with Bill Clinton's alien human hybrid baby.
Yeah.
I can't wait, man. So I think you're right. I think those days of like the John Keels going all over the country and meeting and investigating and writing for pulp magazines or Playboy or what have you, they're kind of over. We live in a whole new digital world where that's just not what's happening. But let's stay on the positive side. Let's highlight these awesome stories that we did find about New York UFOs. Do you want to go first? Whichever one you want to start with, man.
The Walesville, New York UFO incident.
One of the most infamous cases, New York cases, that was a highlight for Donald Kehoe and in the Blue Book files. It happened on July 1st, 1954, between the hours of 6 and 10 p.m. The calls started coming into Rome, New York's military depot. And Rome, New York is it's in central New York. It's not too far from where you grew up. So, and it was alleged that over 1,000 calls were made that night to the Utica Press as well. And people were reporting a strange object. They compared it to like a silvery, like illuminated golf ball. And it was flying over central New York for about 4 hours. And, you know, aside from the numerous eyewitnesses that saw this on the ground, back in the day, there was an airline company called Mohawk Airlines. And
right, I remember.
Yeah, they, you know, flew mostly within the state. But there was one pilot that noted at 20,000 feet, he saw just an extremely bright object that was flying not far from his plane. But what's interesting and what was reported in the Blue Book files is that the officer in charge at Griffiths Air Force Base, which back in the day was one of the most active bases in New York State, they said that in their files it was a balloon. But the officer in charge said that if the object returned the next day, that he would send out a plane to investigate it. So on July 2nd, the next day at about 11 in the morning, the Air Force scrambles an F-94C Starfire jet. It's piloted by Lieutenant William E. Atkins and Lieutenant Henry F. Cowden. And soon after takeoff, and it wasn't exactly clear as to why they were dispatched in the first place, they were sent to intercept a target at about 10,000 feet. And when they arrived at the location, what they claimed is that they saw a Douglas C-47 military transport plane. And then they were allegedly sent back. At least that's what the files initially said. But what the pilot claimed was that they were sent to go look at another target. And they were claiming that this target was a UFO. They didn't know exactly what it was. But as they went to investigate this second target, their cockpit immediately started to get hotter. And there was a sensor that went off claiming that there was a fire in the cabin. So the two men, Atkins and Cowden, ended up abandoning their plane, and it crashed into the town of Walesville, and it killed 4 people in the process. A man named Stanley Phillips, his wife Florence, and their son Gary. They were actually just sitting in their car when the plane came down. And there was a woman, Miss Doris Monroe, who was inside her home and was killed at the time. So, yeah, it's
Man.
The story gets legs the next day when Atkins starts making claims that what was being reported was not actually what had happened. And he maintains that they noticed a silvery colored object in the air. It's unclear that there's like so much muddying in this account because they're saying, oh, well, they went in and they investigated this C-47 and then they were just sent back. While he's saying that, well, we were sent to investigate a UFO. Okay, so you've got that discrepancy there.
Right.
But when they investigated the plane, they found that the military claimed that it was caused by a faulty fire detector circuit. But when they examined the plane, it didn't seem to be malfunctioning at all. There was no evidence of smoke or oil in the cockpit anywhere. And then they started to blame the pilot at that point and saying that he didn't recognize a normal change of temperature in the cockpit, which it screams bullshit to me, because like a fire sensor is not going to go off for just like a sudden change like that. That seems really dumb. But the military just kept muddying up the waters here, and they were just saying, oh, well, when the plane turned around, that's when this malfunction just started to happen. There's just so much confusion around this case, and the Air Force just kind of just kept changing its mind as to what they wanted to label it as. But to me, you don't scramble a jet fighter to investigate a military transport plane.
Right.
Like that doesn't make sense to me, but it just seemed like the military did their best to downplay whatever the heck this was. And then in the process, 4 people were killed.
Yeah.
It's a crazy case. And it was one that, Donald Kehoe cited as like a major cover up in the Blue Book files and for the Air Force at large.
Yeah, and Kehoe was all about the cover up, and I mean, again, when 4 people die from a a possibly malfunctioning plane from a UFO, that screams, there's gonna be a cover up. I hope those families were at least compensated or something for all of this. But can you think of any cases, Rob? I'm trying to think off the top of my head where like something like this happened. There was we hear about instrumentation failing, all the time with UFO cases and pilots, but like literally heating up the cockpit and like trying to bake these guys from within. It's crazy. Yeah,
it's not something often reported. There are instances, where UFOs allegedly, cause certain effects, like the Coyne helicopter case. The UFO, at least according to, Coyne and the other members of the crew, allegedly, that UFO moved their plane up like 2,000 feet or something like that. It was it was kind of crazy. There are those strange instances where it just seems like UFOs mess with the instrumentation in the cockpit of some planes, but Nothing like this.
Right. The one that's coming to mind for me is the Carlos de los Santos case, where the UFO literally like crashed into his plane and then was kind of like, oh shit, we gotta help him. So they like helped guide him to safety after that. I love hearing when they, when the aliens or the intelligence beyond the UFO messes up and then has to self-correct and help after that. It's always great to hear things like that.
Yeah, and and sometimes it's a Travis Walton kind of case where stupidly got out of a truck and you got shot with a beam of light, and allegedly those aliens are just trying to fix you, and you got confrontational, buddy. You got a little confrontational.
That's the redneck coming out. That's his fault,
That is completely his fault. He would say the same damn thing.
Yeah, wasn't he a boxer too? From what I remember,
he was a scrapper. Yeah, he was definitely a scrapper back in the day. Travis Walton, before the UFO experience, definitely a little more daring than I think he was after it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure, man. Well, hey, that's a tragedy with those 4 people dying. Let me try to lighten things up, maybe a little bit over here. I've got an interesting one.
The Cherry Creek, New York UFO landing.
This happened back in August of 1965. It was investigated by NICAP, state police, and the local Air Force Base. So this occurred near the William Butcher Dairy Farm near Cherry Creek, New York, and it involved 3 members of the Butcher family and a 4th witness. And I'm just going to read a little from the report here. So at 8:20 p.m. on August 19th, Harold Butcher, 16, was operating a milking machine in a dairy barn housing 17 cows. There was a portable radio on the wall that was turned to a newscast, and all of a sudden, this static-like interference drowned everything out, and the tractor, which ran the milking machine, abruptly stopped, and a moment later, a Holstein bull secured outside began to bellow and pull at a steel bar to which it was chained to. So there's a lot of shit going on for this young butcher boy. And he runs to a window and he sees a large elliptical object near the ground, 1/4 of a mile away, and there is a reddish vapor that could be seen underneath this thing. And he heard a steady beep, beep, beep sort of sound. And the UFO, as we'll coin it, was on the ground only for a few seconds. Then it shot straight up and it disappeared into the clouds. So when the other witnesses came out after Harold Butcher told them, was yelling and screaming, they noticed a strange odor and also a greenish glow in the clouds where the UFO had vanished. So meantime, it was found that the bull had bent the steel bar in an effort to get loose. So half an hour later, when the craft reappeared, actually, it starts circling the dairy farm. So Mrs. Butcher, she calls the state police, and 2 troopers come, they investigate, they notify the local Air Force. So then the next day, after the UFO that was circling, left again, the next day, Captain James Dorsey, operations officer, he arrived with technicians, and they examined the ground, and they found an odd purplish liquid substance that was discovered at several places. Small unexplained marks, 2 inches wide, 2 inches apart, were also found, and along with patches of singed grass and foliage. So, after the Air Force team left, NICAP members showed up, and they obtained samples of this substance, and they were studied at a local chemical place, and using spectrographic analysis, it showed that the main elements of the liquid to be aluminum, iron, and silicon. Some phosphorus was found in the weed samples, which the analyst said might cause a phosphate smell, explaining the odor. Whew, okay. So, on the night following the Cherry Creek incident, State Trooper Richard Ward, a few miles from this area, he watched an object with 8 circular lights in line flying twice as fast as a jet. It emitted a faint, unfamiliar purring sound. And then John Maxwell of the NICAP New York subcommittee, He carefully checked the Cherry Creek site and questioned the witnesses, and on the basis of present evidence, they believed this entire thing to be completely genuine. It wasn't a hoax. They weren't making it up. They didn't misidentify something. Yeah, this is pretty crazy, man. The animal reactions during this whole thing were really interesting. The people on the farm said they'd never seen any of the animals act like this before. This too. After the object that circled the dairy farm, after it disappeared out of sight, it actually left a sonic boom. So whatever it was, that thing was like, what, Mach?
Yeah.
3.5, I don't know. Pretty crazy. And then also physiological effects. The kid who first saw it, Harold, him and his younger sister, after this whole event, they had really upset stomachs. And the cows, now this is the most important part, the cows were giving less than normal amounts of milk after being milked. So,
oh man,
I don't know, man. What is going on here? You know, it's making people sick. It's got sonic booms. It's a light emanating out of it. And the cows ain't milking like they used to. So, yeah, that is the Cherry Creek landing of 1965.
That's damn. Who is on the political lawyer that we can get, in touch to get some compensation for these cows that aren't putting out as much milk as they used to be? That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Right there.
I think we got to phone either Stephen Bassett or Danny Sheehan, I think, is one of the lawyers, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Get them on the case. Well, I hope the dairy farm's doing okay if it's still around. God, if they're still around now, that'd be amazing.
Right.
But yeah, pretty interesting case, a UFO landing in New York that I'd never heard of before. So
yeah, that's new to me, man. I had never heard of that one either, and like, that's just there's just like a lot of, it's a very fascinating CE2 case. You got some physical evidence. You got some animals just going nuts. Man, that's the good stuff right there.
That's the good stuff. Yep, that ain't no New York City. That is the farmlands of central and or upstate New York for sure.
I mean, where are the aliens gonna land in New York City? Like, the best that they could do is North Bergen, New Jersey in 1975. George Obarski saw that thing. He wasn't thrilled,
Oh my God. Yep. Oh yeah, man. I remember. I think you brought that up in a UFO Happy Hour. That's a great case. I highly suggest people go check that one out as well. Obarski, what a name! I love it. I love it. Was that the one on the playground?
It was in it was in this like a large park that it's named after a boxer. I can't remember his name, but it was like in this kind of like tree shaded section, but like what became so fascinating about it is like not only did George Obarski see these 10 aliens get out of this UFO and start collecting soil samples, there were eyewitnesses that were able to corroborate it from the apartment building across the street called the Stonehenge. And it's kind of one of my like bucket list items to stay for a night in that apartment building because it looks really nice.
Yeah.
It's got really great views. And, why wouldn't you want to stay in an apartment building that had a notorious UFO incident happen across the street? I mean,
exactly. I guess, hey, it's never too late to move, man. The prices here in New York are insane, so maybe I'll have to make it over there myself. But I guess let's move on to this next one you got for us. This is a UFO pursuit case, right? Hey guys, Ryan Sprague here from Somewhere in the Skies, and I want to tell you about something that feels like it was specifically made for us. Those of us who have followed every UFO headline, every whistleblower, every UFO sighting and close encounter that literally defined the past year in UFOs. And that is Anomalous cards. Anomalous cards are a one-of-a-kind collectible series. capturing the top 100 UAP and UFO stories of 2025. Preserved, documented, and brought to life in a format you can actually hold in your hands. We're talking about 100 uniquely designed trading cards, each one representing a pivotal moment in the unfolding UAP conversation. Every single card is individually serial numbered, making each piece of art a limited historical archive. Not just a collectible, but a timestamp of disclosure in motion. And here's where it gets even more exciting. You can collect the full story your way. Grab a complete factory set and own the entire timeline of 2025. Or dive into the thrill of discovery with cello packs and boxes, each containing the chance to uncover exclusive Heroes of Truth insert cards, spotlighting the individuals pushing this mystery into the light. This isn't just memorabilia. It's a curated record of one of the most important years in UAP history. Head over to letsgetanomalous.com right now to grab your set or packs. And for Somewhere in the Skies listeners, you get an exclusive promo code right now for 15% off your order. That promo code is Somewhere15. Again, go to letsgetanomalous.com and use the promo code Somewhere15 for 15% off your order. Because the UFO story is still unfolding, and now you can collect it all with Anomalous cards.
The Raymond Ryan UFO Pursuit.
2 years after my first one, on April 8th, 1956, at 10:15 p.m., American Airlines Flight 775 departed Albany heading for Buffalo. When the plane reached Schenectady, Captain Raymond Ryan and First Officer William Neff spotted this white light. It was a couple of miles away from their position, but they decided to change course to avoid, an in-air collision. And when they did, this light immediately turned 90 degrees and headed straight for their airliner at speeds that they guessed was about 900 miles an hour. It was booking it. Ryan radioed into Griffiths Air Force Base to report this object, which they confirmed to be tracking on radar at the time. And in response, they scrambled 2 jets. But what's interesting here is that Griffiths Air Force Base said, change course, pursue this thing. And Ryan was there for it, so he immediately changed course, and he kept up with it as best as he could. He pursued it up until Lake Ontario, at which point he actually turned back around and headed for Syracuse. But when he ultimately landed in Buffalo, Ryan and Neff reported their story to the Buffalo Evening News, who ran it in the papers on April 10th. So Donald Kehoe pursued this story, and when he got his hands on the official Civil Aviation Authority report, it told a much different story. It stated that Ryan did see a mysterious light, but that he hadn't actually changed course and pursued the object. Ryan himself recanted his story not long after, but on April 16th, 1956, he appeared on a Toronto talk show called Meet the Millers, in which he attested to Griffiths' orders to pursue, saying, quote, Griffiths asked us our next point of landing and to identify the aircraft. I told them Syracuse and identified the flight number. They told us, abandon that next landing temporarily, maintain your course and altitude. We're sending 2 jets to intercept the object. Despite this admission, flight logs appeared to contradict Ryan's words, and Kehoe cited this case as a major Air Force cover-up.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think, Ryan probably backed down because, the Civil Aviation Authority is going to rule on this and say, oh, you're crazy. You can't fly anymore and stuff like that. But this is another one of those big cases for NICAP back in the day, in which to try and stimulate the congressman to hold an official hearing about this, this was one of the cases that they presented and claimed that it was a giant cover-up. And, very well could have been. I don't doubt him. It's just, there's always in these cases from Blue Book history, when something really strange happens, it's always muddied up in the files. Like, the cover-up is not denial. It's, let's just confuse the hell out of you.
Right.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. It seems to be a way to muddy the waters and get everyone on different pages. And then, you look at something like, let's take this story that came out maybe a month ago where John Greenwald over at the Black Vault, there was all these headlines that the CIA had dumped all their files on UFOs finally to the public, when in reality, no, these had all been accessible for a really long time. But what they did is, the way that John originally got them, they sent the dude a CD-ROM, and they made it as hard as possible to either read these files or, just there was no way to really search through them, like in any logical way. So they would make it as hard as possible for people like John or UFO researchers to make sense of any of these things. Right. So let's give John, maybe a little UFO case here, and then let's give him this thing we found, a memo about missing Coke bottles within one of the departments at the CIA. And if those Coke bottles aren't returned, we're going to get rid of the Coke vending machine. So, it's crazy, man. Like, they gave him all of this stuff in hopes that he would kind of just give up on it. But what does he do? He literally scans every single file he got, puts it into a searchable PDF format or of some kind. And now you can say, like, I want to go to this year of the CIA files. Here's everything. I want to look for cylindrical objects. Here's everything. So yeah, man, I think you're right. I think they will do anything they can to make the stories conflict, for sure. And it seems in this case, with a lot of these New York cases, it all ties back to Griffiths Air Force Base, right? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, which now is like it's a public airfield. That was it was shut down back in the mid-90s or whatever. But it's Griffiths seemed to be like the central hub that was tracking, all air traffic within New York at the time. And it was kind of in like the central location to do it, because like Rome, New York is basically, smack dab right in the middle of New York, which is, as states go, it's very strangely shaped. But it's they probably did a fair amount of tracking of UFOs back in the day and downplaying reports, because there are a number of cases from New York in the Blue Book files that were marked as unidentified. So, there's probably more gems in there if you can track down all the information.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think, a lot of people know about Gary McKinnon, the guy who hacked for UFO info. But the predecessor before him, another guy, I think in Wales, Matthew Bevan, when he was hacking into stuff, trying to find UFO info, like a decade before McKinnon, I think Griffiths Air Force Base is one of the places that he hacked into and found stuff. So something's going on, man. Something is definitely going on. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, that was a good one, man. I'm glad you were able to dig that one up. Here's my next one, and this is actually comes out of the book Night Siege by Philip Imbrogno, Bob Pratt, and of course famed J. Allen Hynek. About the famous, like we mentioned, Hudson Valley UFO wave. But this happened kind of right before, or maybe in the middle of it.
The Indian Point nuclear reactor incident.
So there's this place called Indian Point Reactor. It's a nuclear site in New York. And this brings us back to 1984 on July 24th, Indian Point Energy, and it's a 3-unit nuclear power plant station. There we go. Located in Buchanan, New York, right off the Hudson River. And so on this night, a security guard, he gets on the radio and he alerts the other personnel that he had sighted something that looked like an, quote, ice cream cone over Reactor 3 at the site, which, mind you, was the only active reactor at the time. So, of course, this is where a UFO is going to be sighted, over the one active reactor. So, of course, they're freaking out. And he starts getting all the other security on the line and saying, has anyone seen this? Anyone seen this? And another guy says that he did see it, but it looked boomerang-shaped to him. And this thing, it's just chilling, like 300 feet above this reactor. And they said it was massive, dude, like 3 football fields in length. And it was extremely bright, very blinding. And so eventually the thing disappears out of sight. And the reactor, it didn't seem to be adversely affected by whatever this thing was or anything. But clearly there was a breach of security. So the main investigator on this, controversial UFO researcher, Philip Imbrogno, who would go on to investigate Hudson Valley and everything, he discovered that the reactor services local and state facilities, including New York City subway systems, trains, and several military installations around Dutchess County, New York. So the main company overseeing all of this is the New York Power Authority. And supposedly they dissuaded, as Imbrogno puts it, dissuaded him to not publicize this incident. So he kind of kept quiet about it, and but then more witnesses started coming forward from Indian Point and surrounding areas and talking to him. And one of the security guys, he told Imbrogno, quote, as the object approached the east gate of the reactor complex, the sensors that detect movement shut down and the entire alarm system failed. At this time, I radioed for assistance, and several other officers left their posts and joined me at the east end of the plant to watch the object approach. Inside the security console, the computer that controls all security and communications shut down. The cameras were still, however, functioning, and we know for sure that the object was videotaped. But then he went on to tell Imbrogno that the next day, the commander called in all the guards involved and informed them that, quote, nothing happened. They were all ordered to forget the entire incident, and all radio communications that night were taped, but according to the plant supervisor, the tapes no longer exist, which I find very hard to believe. So, yeah, man, this is pretty crazy. We got a UFO and nuke case in New York State.
This is why currently Indian Point Energy Center has a 3.4 rating on Google right now. It's because of crap like this. This could be a 5-star facility, but no, you got to cover up your dang UFO sightings right over the damn thing, and this is what you get. Fun fact here, they are open 24 hours. I would certainly hope so.
Oh, that's good. Okay. I would hope so, especially if they're powering the New York City subway system.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. They gotta be going, guys. You gotta be pulling those all-nighters. That's just the way that it has to be. But it's always interesting when you hear cases of UFOs just hanging out over nuclear sites, over military sites. There was one interesting case that I stumbled upon about a month ago from Italy back in July of '77. Over this NATO base in northern Italy, there was this really large flying saucer that just hovered over this igloo that was storing jet fighters, and it was there for like maybe an hour. It was corroborated by other eyewitnesses off the base, and it's stories like that are just always fascinating. It's just like, hey, we're gonna hang out here, you know. Yeah. We're at O'Hare Airport. We're just gonna hang up above the terminal here for a little bit, and then you know, we'll punch, you know, holes through the clouds, whatever.
Yeah, man. Again, it's this trickster element to all of this. Like, yeah, while we can be like, yeah, red alert, UFOs, nukes, and everything, I still think they're messing with us. You know, like if they really wanted to cause destruction or really send a message, they would render these things useless forever, or they would just blow them all up. You know, so why? Why are they just hovering over it? Is it just to scare the shit out of us, or make us think, wow, something could have happened? Maybe we should rethink this. I don't know.
Yeah. What I want to know now is, are aliens in on the online review game, and are they the ones that drove down their rating for the Indian Point Energy Center? Like, I want to know, are they giving 1-star reviews right now? Because if they are, we've got an even bigger problem here that we need to tackle, and I don't know how we're gonna do it. How do we tune in to like alien podcasts and give them 1 stars? I don't know, but if they're going to be out here giving us 1 stars for our energy centers, we got to deal with that.
Intergalactic bots. That's what we need, man. That is definitely what we need. Your joke is so much better than mine. I was going to say, well, it was ice cream cone shaped, so maybe they were trying to cool off the reactor.
Listen, man, sometimes you got to cool those things down. It's right by the water, but you know what? Sometimes, especially, those days get hot down there. Like,
it was July.
It was July. We're talking, southern New York here. So those guys don't know what it's like to be -20 with a wind chill that puts it to -40, like we do up here. You have those days, but sometimes that energy just needs a nice, cool treat, and I can understand that. I think what's interesting about the ice cream cone shape of it is that there is a history of objects that look like ice cream cones.
Yes, absolutely.
Thomas Mantell claimed to see something that looked vaguely ice cream shaped, which you can say that's a balloon, but it didn't really, it moved too fast to be a balloon. The guys in the Portage County UFO chase, Dale Spar, who pursued that UFO 60 miles over into Pennsylvania, he claimed that the UFO was ice cream cone shaped, and that's one of the strangest shapes that keeps popping up from time to time. It's like ice cream cone just hanging out.
Oh man. Well, first of all, I knew, again, this is why you're here, Rob. I know you can just rattle off names and dates of cases that I'm just like, why do I even bother having a podcast? Why do I do this?
It's a blessing and it's a curse.
Right, I know.
It really is.
I'm thinking too now, July 24th, that was 8 days before my birthday, my literal birthday. God, I could have had a UFO nukes case on my birthday if they had waited.
I know, man.
One more week. Damn you, ice cream cone aliens. Oh well. Well, let's move to our last case to bookend our New York cases.
Rita Malley's UFO encounter.
Tell us about Rita Malley, if you would.
Oh man, this is definitely one of the strangest New York cases that I think we have here. This one comes from the pages of John Keel's Operation Trojan Horse, and it fits into the flap of sightings that was occurring between 65 and 67 in the States. And on the evening of Tuesday, December 12th, 1967, Miss Rita Malley was driving home. She lived in Ithaca at the time, and out of the back window of the car, her son that was riding with her spotted a red light that seemed to be tailing the vehicle. So Rita was speeding at the time, so she assumed she was about to be pulled over by the cops, but when she looked out the window, she realized that she was being paced not by a police cruiser, but by a UFO. It was shaped like a disc about the size of a boxcar with a dome top and square red and green windows, she told John Keel. She also described hearing a humming sound, the same kind made by a television, an old tube set television. She she came back to her 5-year-old son Dana to like brace himself. Like she was thinking like this thing is going to make an impact with us. Just brace yourself. But when she did, she noticed that he was in some kind of trance. And it was at this point that the car was taken over by the UFO. It was pulled over the shoulder and into an alfalfa field where it came to a stop. Quote, a white twirling beam of light flashed down from the object. I heard the humming sound. Then I began to hear voices. They didn't sound like male or female voices, but were weird. The words were broken and jerky, like the way a translator sounds when he is repeating a speech at the United Nations. But it was like a weird chorus of several voices. I became hysterical. My son would not respond to my cries. I knew the radio wasn't on. The voices named someone I knew and said that at that moment my friend was involved in a terrible accident miles away. They said my son would not remember any of this. Then the car began to move again. Although still not under my control, we came up out of that field and over the ditch as if it were nothing, and then back onto the road. Rita then raced home. She was just incredibly panicked, and, rightfully so. I can completely understand. When she flew through her front door, the next day, she did in fact learn that her friend had been in a terrible car accident.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is definitely one of the weirdest. God, I don't even know what to make of this.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of everything.
It does. UFOs taking over cars. We've had cases like that. What the hell, man? Your UFO is literally taking over a car. You have singled out this woman and you brought her into an alfalfa field. Are you kidding me right now? Alfalfa? You couldn't bring it. You couldn't tie it into like a cornfield or something. Maybe we could.
Lavender, maybe.
Yeah, we got some sunflowers out there. Let's do something a little more classy than alfalfa.
Alfalfa. Come on, man. That's like the shit you dig off of your salad and don't eat, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's not something that you want. It's named for one of the little rascals here,
Good reference. I knew we could work Little Rascals into this somehow.
Little Rascals doesn't get worked in enough to UFO lore and literature. We need more of it.
Yep. If not, you're not doing your job. Wow, man. That one's crazy. I don't know. Are there any others you can really think of? These were the two main ones I came across. There is, I should say, speaking of John Keel, some murmurs of Mount Misery, which I believe is in Long Island. Yep. Of Men in Black and stuff like that, but I didn't really come up with anything specific in terms of that. Do you know anything about Keel's work up in Long Island?
Mount Misery is it's one of those notorious places that people claim to have all kinds of different strange interactions with, spirit phenomenon. You have UFO sightings. There's just a lot of weird things reported at Mount Misery. But it's there aren't a lot of specifics that come about it, but it's just kind of one of those places in New York that has this very eerie reputation for strange things that happen in and around it.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those places. Man, Rob, these were great, man. I knew if we really dug, and I knew if I came to you that we would find something to make our home state truly proud of.
That's what we're doing here. We need to put New York out there. Listen, we're here. We're here right now. There isn't a lot of good things happening in New York right now. We'll be all right. I think we'll be all right with this one. But we got the Rona pretty bad up here. But you know what? If we can make it weirder, it's our job. We got to make it weirder. We got to tell the weird stories that everybody needs to know, so that there's a little faith in New York and stuff. And New York had its brush with its mystery air flap in 1909 down in the Pine Bush area, which is where a lot of sightings during the Hudson Valley flap took place. And I think with Hudson Valley, what that flap doesn't get the reputation for that it truly deserves is witnesses having psychic encounters with UFOs, in which they would often see these UFOs have a thought and the UFO would react. Like there was one story in which a woman saw this UFO. I think it was she was on the highway. She pulled off, and I believe it was over a body of water or something like that. And it was moving away from her, and she thought, as she was looking up at it, she just, it was like very beautiful to look at. And most of what the UFOs looked like in New York during this flap, they were very boomerang shaped. And she put out there like, no, don't go away. So the UFO responded, and it started to come back, and it actually came toward her. And then she chickened out. Said, no, you're getting too close. And then it's like, fine, you hurt my feelings. And the UFO went away. And
what a tease.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, listen, sometimes you got to be brave. Sometimes you got to put on that brave face. If you're going to say, please don't go away, don't hurt the UFO's feelings, saying, no, you're getting too close.
Yep. Don't what's the old saying? Don't mess with the bull.
Oh, yeah, you get the horns, man. You get those horns. You don't want it.
Get those galactic horns.
Yeah, you'll get those galactic horns, but like there are a couple of accounts of that happening in the Hudson Valley flap, and it's so great to read those. And what brought that flap legitimacy to begin with is that the first person that reported anything was a police officer. So
awesome. That's what we want, man. Yep, exactly. That just brings more credibility all the time, whether it's military, law enforcement. It just always gives it something extra there. Wow, man. Oh, well, in that whole parapsychological phenomenon in the terms of these, whether it's thinking or trying to communicate with the phenomenon and it reacting, that's so fascinating to me. And we hear that a lot in the lore with all of this. But there's one lesson that you taught me, and I think we kind of have to bring back when it comes to all that. And it's, I think you know where I'm going with this. What don't you do with UFOs, Rob?
You don't flash SOS at a UFO because you know what's going to happen? It's going to come abduct you. It's going to come back. It's going to come down. It's going to abduct you. You want to know what? It happened to Terry Lovelace, and Terry seems like a really nice guy. It happened to him and his buddy. Happened to the Allagash guys. Oh, hey, let's take our flashlight and flash it at a UFO. What are we going to do? Oh, let's flash an SOS. No, they're going to pick you up. You want to know why? Because you said you needed help. Trying to be genuine here. These aliens are trying to be genuine, trying to help people out. But no, you got to go and you got to flash an SOS. So they picked you up. And you know what? They did some stuff with you. Want to know why? Because you pissed them off. You didn't need to be picked up. You were fine in that damn canoe with the four of you in it. You weren't catching fish. You didn't complete your task. But hey, let's just flash this UFO. Just don't do it, folks. Do not flash an SOS at a UFO. That is the one lesson I want to teach everybody here. Don't do it.
And this has been Learning with Rob on PBS. Thank you for joining us tonight, everyone. Next up is Fresh Air coming up next. Wow, man. We didn't just learn about New York UFOs. We learned what not to do with these UFOs. Dude, it's been so good to just lay back and laugh about things, especially in the world today with everything going on. This was exactly what I needed. I know it's what a lot of our listeners probably needed as well. So I have to thank you for coming on today, brother.
I appreciate you having me on. Anytime that we can laugh, anytime that we can make other people laugh, it's good in the UFO community, because I've said this many times before. Y'all, sometimes you take yourself a little too seriously. You need to learn to laugh a little bit. And I'm glad that I can bring forth laughs. Do not let aliens leave 1-star reviews for your podcasts or your businesses. Please, this is an epidemic.